Here it goes.
It's Too T3rpd.
Oh, put them on. Okay. So, okay. Well, then I can ask the first question then. You freestyle? Okay. You put them on. I was like, you never know. You might be ready to spit some bars. You never know.
Maybe before I leave here tonight.
You never know. It's right. That's some Snoop wine, so you never know. You might get some inspiration.
There you go. I'm trusting you.
But y'all already know it's the Too T3rpd podcast, and it's your boy Donovan, a.k.a. Mr. You Knew What It Was When You signed up.
Yo, what's good? You already know who it is, but you can't see me. It's your boy Slump, SLUM, 3 P's, 1 D. The usual. We're here. We're live.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I like it. Look at you. Professional behind the scenes.
That little bit about you knew reminded me of one of the people I played in the radio to was Oscar Brown Jr.
Huh?
Wrote The Snake.
Oh, really?
That Trump's been abusing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know the story about that song?
No.
Yeah. I mean, Oscar Brown Jr. wrote it, as a kind of a protest. I mean, he was like he was a communist for a while, right? And he wrote this song, criticizing certain kind of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you got Trump quoting it to his crowd, completely misunderstanding the meaning of it. He thinks it's like an anti-immigrant song.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, you're the snake. You don't get it. Your lack of self-awareness and irony is startling. Yeah.
Ironically enough, he was on, sadly enough, one of the podcasts I listen to frequently today. And just listening to him talk was just kind of like, wow.
You got to have a stomach for that.
I like to hear both sides, whether I agree with it or not. So that's how you got a better understanding of how the world really
I've
works.
heard that side. I've heard it.
I'm going to be honest.
I've heard it up to here. I don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
I know what they're going to say.
I haven't even been keeping up. So I was just like, all right, well, let me hear what this dude got to say. And it was...
You know what he's going to say.
Yep,
And
same
it's going to be a
nonsense.
lie anyway. So
Yep,
what's
exactly.
the point, right?
Exactly. It was it was interesting nonetheless. It's sad to see that, like, he's still just like an entertainer at heart. I'm crying, yo.
Here we go. Right? It's not the wine. It's just me.
We lit tonight. Y'all already know. Okay, so we got to break this down about the introduction. I got to do the introduction real quick.
Right.
Okay, so there's a reason why I'm wearing this Paint Lewis shirt. We're about to make a connection.
And
here
I'm
today.
not, because mine's in the laundry. But
But we're talking from the new generation of Paint Lewis to the originators of the Paint Lewis crew. So
before it was Paint Lewis.
that's right. Oh, ooh. See, now we really about to get to talking for real, for real. So, okay, we're going to talk about not only Paint Lewis, but St. Louis history in general, because we have somebody who has been very important to the St. Louis community. I want y'all to give it up for Mr. Bob Hansman. Ooh. There we go. That live audience, you see him out there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You just have to do it, right? Yeah, you're pretty live. Okay. All right. There we go.
Got you. Don't worry.
All right.
I'm hollering, yo. So how you doing today?
I'm okay. Okay. Just came off my radio show, and I'm happy.
Most definitely. So let's talk about that first. Your radio show.
Most people probably listening are too young to know people like Bernie Hayes, but the old I'm part of this Black Radio Hall of Fame. Bernie Hayes, one of the old DJs from here. He used, he's on the air all the time. I listened to him when I was a kid, right? And then he started this group a couple years ago called Black Radio Hall of Fame to recognize some of the old DJs while they're still alive. Some of them. He asked me to be on a board because we've been friends for ages, and then we started a new radio station and BRHF radio, and I got my own show. Wednesdays from 2 to 6. Brother Bob's birthday bash.
Okay.
BBBB. Yeah, and I just came from there. I was like, whew. Yeah,
I like
We
that.
broadcast out of Harris-Stowe now.
Okay.
Yeah, we used to be in the Tandy Center in the Ville, but now we're at Harris-Stowe.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm loving it. I just get to play all the music I used to listen to. Bernie would play the music. It's like full full circle, right?
Yeah.
Here I am working with my idols, EDB, Brian Gregory,
Okay.
Dougie's, and wow, life is good.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And so you're a local as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Born in Afton?
Afton, 1947, Afton, yeah. Wow.
I did a little bit of
Wow.
research,
Whew. Yeah, you did. Yeah, so I'm gonna hit. I'm in 2 weeks. I'm gonna be 77.
Well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
I guess.
No, that's a blessing for real.
Yeah. It's been a long, strange trip, as they say.
Hey, we're about to learn a little bit about it today.
Yeah.
I love this. Okay, so let's start into the early origins, because I almost like you do so much. It's almost like, where do we really even start with your story, to be honest?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if you want to start the Paint Lewis story, or
I feel like
the
that'll.
Peabody story. What do you want to do?
Which came first? Did the Peabody story come first, or did Paint Lewis come first? Kind of like, I like doing timelines.
Yeah, actually,
What got you
Paint
even?
Lewis came first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we get to Paint Lewis, then I want to get started with your art origins.
Okay. Yeah. So, I just grew up drawing. One of those things. I don't remember when I wasn't drawing, and so when I went to college, I majored in drawing and painting and English literature and religious studies, which is really interesting combination of things that have been very useful over the years. Honest to God, it was the things I was able to do with those. But
Did you come from a religious background?
I did, and then I got rid of it, and then there's parts of it I miss. I haven't been for a while, but I'm one of the only white members of this little tiny black church that lived up on Cass Avenue.
Okay.
It was torn down for the NGA. Reverend Davis lived to 101. He was like one of the Pruitt-Igoe ministers. And I walked in that church one time, and it was like, they were like singing all the old spirituals. I felt like I didn't know a place like this existed anymore, especially in St. Louis. But yeah, so I those are my interests, and I was also very political during that time. I was just talking to Jamal a couple of months ago on her show, but I was part of this whole civil rights thing, and met Coretta King and Bobby Kennedy, Julian Bond, Stokely Carmichael, all those folks, and actually got beat up by the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh shit!
I did, and lived to tell about it. Yeah. What's that purple button?
That's the. That's the. Oh, you can't hear it. That's right.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah. Okay, but yeah. They took me out good. I actually I pressed charges against them. This was like 1970 or so.
Really?
And I pressed charges. The guy, the head of the Klan was named Ralph Freed, which was really ironic, right? This
you weren't trying to free no damn body. That's wild.
And so in the day because I remember my lawyer telling me, said, we can arrest the head of the Klan, but we can't guarantee your safety.
Right.
I said, arrest him. And that night, my lawyer's office was bombed.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was serious, and those are really formative experiences. Back then, you couldn't be on the sidelines. You saw what was going on, and you had to get, okay, I'm either on this side or on that side, right? And it was very clear to me what side I was on, and I've never looked back, even though there have been some dear prices to pay.
Yeah, most definitely.
Right? Yeah, but it's interesting because I can talk to my students from firsthand knowledge of things they've only read about. It's like they never heard from anybody that was beat up by the Klan and lived to tell about it.
Exactly.
Right? They read about other people that didn't make it, And I've got friends, older friends in North St. Louis. They came up here because their family members were lynched. And so this is like really relatively recent stuff.
Exactly.
And Yeah, I often joked. If I tried to teach my class in Florida, Ron DeSantis would stop me at the border. He wouldn't let me in. He would not let me in. But at any rate, what brought all that up? My origins, right? Yeah. Here we go.
No, you're good. You're
Here
good.
we go. Right. But yeah, and I really, and then, you know, so I'm seeing all that nationally, right? And it's very clear. And then I'm growing up in Afton, and you know, years later I would adopt a black son, right? But you know, Javon and I've joked over the years. Like when I was a kid, I saw black folks on TV,
Yeah.
and Javon saw white folks on TV. It was like that, and but then when I sort of made my way to the north side,
Yeah.
it just is like, okay, this sealed the deal. I'm committed to this. I'm not never. You know, I'm not going to do like most of my friends did and do it for a minute and then, you know.
So what? Because that is a common thing that happens in St. Louis. So what made you really stick to it and be like, you know, it would be a lot more comfortable to go ahead and you just go to where I'm comfortable and where I came back to.
Ironically, I'm not comfortable where you might think I'm comfortable.
Hey,
you know,
I mean,
I'm not. I mean, when I have this inverse reaction a lot of people have. Like when I go to Chesterfield, I hope I get out alive. You know, I cannot wait to get back to the quote ghetto where I feel safe. I mean, and that's just the opposite of so many people like me. You know, I don't get it. I mean, I guess the other part I can tell you right at the beginning here is, you know, the Peabody part, right? Even though it kind of came a couple years after I started, you know, working with Paint Lewis or doing Paint Lewis, I went down to teach a program in Clinton Peabody. Darcy Webby, the high rise, was still up at the time across the street. It was going to be a summer art program, like in '94, for kids living in public housing. And actually, the first kid I met was kind of the head of the Bloods, Cheeto. And he came out to see what the hell I was doing there, right? And I was like, that's a really good question. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here either. But we hit it off. And, you know, he became kind of my entree into the neighborhood. And, you know, the whole program didn't crash and burn. And I came back the next summer. And actually, we were about to come back for the third summer in '96 when a boy I was really close to, Jermaine, died of sickle cell. And I'm amazed I got through that sentence without crying, because usually when I say his name, I was out of the cemetery just last week. I mean, I still can't, you know, because I designed his headstone and spoke at his, I mean, we were very close, you know, spoke at his funeral. And, but in the wake of that, Tito's younger brother, Javon, who was very close to Jermaine, and was lost without him. He called me one Friday night late and asked if he could come out. I didn't know him that well because he was kind of a quiet kid, but he told me later, he said, you know, because he loved Jermaine. I mean, he just looked up to Jermaine as the family he wished he had, right? And because he came from a family of drug dealers and murderers, right?
Gotcha.
And Jermaine was a stable place. And without Jermaine, he didn't know what to do. So, but he called me one night because he's you know, he basically said, you know, Jermaine and Bob were really close. I really loved Jermaine. Jermaine and Bob loved each other. I'll call Bob, you know, and that's how it started. He came. I went and got him, and he spent the night and then spent the rest of the weekend. And you know, Monday rolls around and it's like, well, Javon, what are we doing here? You know, I got to go to work. And he asked if he could stay, and I let him. And after a couple of weeks, I said, well, you know, looks like you're going to be here a while. Do you want your own room?
Yeah.
You know, and it kind of went like that. And after a couple of years, we just started behaving more like father and son. And, and he just walked in one day and asked if I ever thought of adopting him. And bingo. Now we're a family, and you know, we just got married last week. And you know, I mean, we're yeah.
That's awesome.
We're real family. Right? But the other thing that happened after Jermaine died, so you know, Javon moves in with me, but then I was just wandering around the projects. I was lost without Jermaine too. I really thought it was over for me. I was a basket case. I couldn't stop grieving. I was out at the cemetery all the time, just pounding on the earth. And but Belinda, Cliff's mother, came up and gave me a flyer, like a survey. And I looked at it and said, well, Belinda, this is for people in the community. I'm not really part of the community. And she goes, yeah, you are. Have you ever thought about just moving in here with us? I was like, God. A light went on. It was like, this is where it's all going. Because I hated where I was living out in the suburb. It was good for Javon because he needed some quiet and safety,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
But for me, I couldn't take it. And it was like, I understand the projects understand me. And so Guardian Angel had the building then, and they just gave me their old food pantry because they weren't using it anymore. And they said, you just move in here.
Wow.
And work with the kids. So I kind of moved in. And so from then on, we basically had like 2 homes.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And it's just kind of gone from there. Yeah.
Wow.
And still down there. I mean, some of the kids we've had in our program recently are the kids that I had at the beginning, right? I mean, it's like we're in a couple generations in now, right? Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And, Javon then grew up and started teaching with me, and, yeah. So it was,
That's amazing.
So, yeah, I'm never, I haven't regretted a minute of turning my back on where I grew up.
Most definitely. So, I'm sure you were able to produce some amazing artists stuff from out of this project as well.
Yeah, the kids. Oh my God, some of their work. I'll show it to you sometime. I mean, I would give them the same assignments I give my Wash U kids.
Really?
And they do better.
They
do better. Yeah. And their attitude was different. For the Wash U kids, it was like, I'm so used to succeeding. This is one more accomplishment, right? But for those kids, it was like, this is a victory. This is something. And
I love that. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of understand the feeling that you get because it's one of those things of like that's way more rewarding is being able to change someone's life.
Well, having your own changed. I mean that's been a remarkable thing. I mean you go down there with this jacked up idea. You're going to change their lives. They change yours.
Their lives too. That's true.
Yeah, they change yours.
You're correct.
Yeah, and it's
because you learn so much more yourself. You're right.
And and people to this day, they don't get it. They think, oh, Bob, you sacrificed so much. You could have had this. It's like, are you kidding? I didn't sacrifice anything. I mean, it's been one blessing after another. The stuff you think I should value, I don't anyway. It's exactly. Like, maybe sitting out there in the suburbs, doing the kind of things that I was, mowing the lawn. Yeah. Are you kidding?
Exactly. That's boring as
hell. You want
me
me to trade this amazing life for that?
I 1,000% agree with you.
I mean, what amazes me is other people don't agree with us.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, what happened to your soul? Really, what happened to you?
Got stuck in the machine.
I don't know what. I can't account for it.
We feel a lot of people fall for the system, and what they sell you is what the outcome is supposed to be for your life.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like it's a lot of the things that people have given up, or a lot of people didn't. Most people don't even have the access or the privilege to dream.
Yeah, I know.
And the ones who do take it for granted.
They do. They take it for granted. That's something Javon told me one time. It was a Thanksgiving, and we were just talking about stuff. And he said, I am thankful for all the things I didn't have growing up because I will never take them for granted.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I just. But yeah, I mean, the other thing I hear all the time is, you've given up so much. You've done so much. It's like, I feel like what we're doing should be ordinary. I mean,
that
really,
be the standard.
This is just yeah. I mean, if it's just jacked up that what we're doing seems extraordinary because it just seems like, well, isn't that what we're here to do on this earth? And you're not doing it.
That's a fact.
You're not doing it, and so maybe it looks like some of us are doing a lot, but if everybody did a little bit,
it wouldn't even be.
It would not
just be the general standard.
It would just be It would just be the air we breathe.
You're 1,000% correct. Yeah, 1,000% correct. Okay, I feel like this is a great way to transition into Payne Lewis now. Sure. We started talking about the art. Okay. So what got you Because you even said it was called something different even before Paint Lewis. So go ahead and start giving us this history lesson.
Okay. So I'm trying to put all the pieces together myself, right? Because there's all these starting points that kind of converge, right? But so even before I went down to the projects, I was working with kids in my back porch doing like art. I was living just south of McCreetown when McCreetown was still there, right? And that's what led to the offer. But I also, as people learned what I was doing, now and then there'd be a teacher, somebody would recommend somebody to me that they thought might be interested in doing some art. And one of the kids was also interested in graffiti, Frank. And then around the same time, because this really had multiple starting points, around the same time, somebody had introduced me to Chris Bettison, Casper. And through Casper, then I met Jonah, who's Stun, and Pete, who's Way at the time, and a couple others. It was basically then Stun, Casper, Way, and me were, literally one night, this would have been around, this had to have been around 96 or so, maybe, 5 or 6. And because right about the time I was starting Peabody. And we were sitting around Chris's apartment, Casper's apartment, and you were just kind of talking. We'd go, they go paint. They tried to teach me, didn't work, right? I need my paint and brushes. They got their spray cans, right? But and I would often take pictures of them while putting up their work and stuff. And we just really just hung out together a lot, and we were talking about how pretty much all the underpasses, everything were done, and sitting around Chris' apartment, and I forget I don't know if it was Chris or who it was, but said, what if we did the flood wall? And it's like, that's a crazy idea.
Yeah.
How can they, we're not going to get away with that. And Harmon was the mayor then, and I think Casper talked to him and somehow convinced him this was a good idea.
Yeah.
Right? And it wasn't called Paint Lewis for several more years. It was like some kind of underground Superfest or something like that was the name. I've still got the slides. I could look it up because I was there literally taking pictures when the very first marks went on that flood wall.
That's amazing.
I got the pictures of it. I got the pictures of the kids asleep waiting to start painting and carrying the ladder over there, and I got the first of everything, right? And
how old were you around this time?
how old was I?
Yeah.
So if it's like around 96 or 40, 57, 67, I must have been almost 50.
That's
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing, yo.
Yeah, I must have been almost 50.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah. Yeah, it would have to be. Yeah, because I'm going to be 77. It's been we had our 25th anniversary. So yeah.
Wow.
So it was basically at that point it was, and we had a show downtown, and I think the designs it was kind of basically an abandoned upper floor of one of these big old buildings down here, and we had what they called it, the Graffiti Art Expo or Guerrilla Art Expo, I think is what it was called, and what we did there is it was kind of a way of announcing the flood wall thing. And so we had a lot of flats set up, brought up, and for several nights before the opening, because it was gonna be like an actual opening, right? But we all met up here at night, and the guys brought their spray cans, and I brought my paint and brushes, and we just went at it, all night long, and there was another really beautiful intersection that's I think you'll get. Because, and it makes what happened later even more poignant, because the graph writers knew that I had just lost Jermaine. And they knew I was devastated. And it was Jonah, who basically said, Bob, we're going to breathe life back into you. You know? And they did. They did. And which makes what happened to Jonah more ironic than ever. So we had this guerrilla art expo, and at the opening there we had all the hip hop and break dancing and everything, and actually I think one of the other people there was Kababi in the early days. He was there.
Wow, really?
He was there. Yep.
That is definitely somebody I really want to interview.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He'll remember all that.
Wow.
Yeah, we've known each other way back. Way back, yeah.
Okay.
And but yeah, and that was kind of a sort of a kickoff, and connected to the flood wall. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the first year, we just got a lot of buff paint. Had a truckload of buff paint for the folks. We had a few scaffoldings set up, because one of the things that we wanted from the front, we didn't just want people putting a little throw up on the wall. We wanted the wall to be the thing, right, from top to bottom,
right.
Not just a wall with something on it. And so we, to help with it, and basically, Casper and them just kind of called their friends all over the country, and said, come in and show up for Labor Day weekend. We're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
And remember, Devious came from Cleveland. Saber was there. I think it was the fun, that great Saber piece. It was maybe the second or third year, because he had a huge wall to himself, and it was all silver. And this year when I was down there, one of the guys I was talking to, mentioned Saber, and he remembered the piece. And I said, do you know where it came from? Because he didn't. He just knew the piece, because there was all these silver spiders in it. And I said, back in the day, this wasn't all cleaned out. It was, and this urban planning thing. Remind me to talk to you about the urban planning idea, right? Because it was all just weeds right up to the wall. And so, the guys are up there with the ladders, trying to, and the spiders are climbing up the wall while they're painting, right? Shit. So Saber just incorporates these big silver spiders into his piece. It was great. Because, what's also interesting is so many of those pieces they're not really spontaneous. They're really planned out.
Yep.
They come with the little sketches and right, and I mean this, but then he just kind of winged it. The spiders in. It was cool, but and we did it for a couple years. The third year, I think, is when we got into trouble, because some of the folks started just painting all over the city, and they were all the way. Well, the park was gone, but it was way out by Big Bend.
Really,
they were in the bathroom, graffitiing the bathroom at this restaurant. Okay, that's when we started.
They was going ham. People complaining about this year's shit. Okay,
I know. Well, and I tell you, my feeling is a lot of that. It's not the writers that are here to do the work. It's these little clowns that are on the coattails.
Yep.
And think this is a chance to act out, and sadly though the public and the press associates it with the Paint Lewis and the writers that are here to do work.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
my biggest fear with it all, to be honest, is that with all the all the changes that they're trying to make over there, that this could be one of those things that they try to eliminate, and they're trying to use it as an excuse.
I really don't think so.
You don't?
I mean, it's become like an underground tourist destination. I mean, it's like one of the world's longest flood wall. Well, then this year it was the longest all women flood wall, the yellow wall. Yeah. Right? I mean, it's in the Guinness Book of Records. Yeah. They're not gonna do it. And the other that urban planning thing. This is fascinating because when we started that, I mean, it was the wall, all that area, that literally where you dump the bodies. I mean, literally. Oh, yeah. And once we started going down there and using it, and even though it's only legal to paint over the weekend, people are not painting all that.
Exactly.
I mean, for a while they were actually arresting people for doing graffiti on the graffiti wall, right? If it wasn't. And actually, the first year we actually ran into some problems with some religious fundamentalists.
Really?
Yes. They thought the whole thing was satanic. And I was down there the day after, and I was taking pictures, and this truck pulled up, and this elderly white couple was in the truck, and I'm taking pictures, and the gal, she was the passenger, she said, like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm taking pictures, right? And she starts going, Satini, 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 is like chanting. I was like, what are you talking about? And I realized she's saying satanic. She thought the whole thing was satanic. There was one of these pieces that she said, oh, that's the evil eye and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going, wow. But I came back the next day, and these religious folks had vandalized the graffiti wall.
That's crazy.
They'd come in with buckets of paint and just like all over the wall. All over the wall. I got pictures of that too. Right?
See, I was waiting for the right moment to interject, and I think I found the right moment.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you. They definitely were looking for a reason to be bothered. Like,
oh, yeah.
They knew about the wall.
Yeah.
They went there for this expressed purpose.
Of course. They probably never been down there before.
And it's just like, it didn't interfere with your life before this, and you introduce it into your life.
Yep.
It's like...
Yeah, and so now they're the vandals.
Yeah,
how ironic is that, right?
And it's like, what are you trying to accomplish here with those actions?
I know. But the other thing, the positive part of all this was, so once it started being an occupied area rather than a dead one, you started seeing people, jog by just to look at the work, or... some of the nice pieces. People started having wedding photos taken down there, and I've got pictures of all of these, right? And even some of the senior citizen homes, they started bringing van loads of people down there to see the flood wall.
Oh yeah,
it was, and kids were coming. It was like family. It was like bringing all these people together that had never interacted with each other.
Oh yeah, I took my family down there and did family portraits.
Yeah, there you go. Right, there you go, and. So at some point, a couple years in, we started saying, we got to consider making like a little pocket park out of that little right there at the end of Shoto, right? The top of the wall, because it wasn't like it. What you see now wasn't there. It was just crap, right? Just crap. And at the time, the idea seemed again like everything else far-fetched, right? But by God, over the years, that thing became a kind of a legitimate enough place that next thing you know, the trail's coming through, right? There's a little pocket park there. It's part of this. I often tell in my architecture and urban planning students, I said, this is an interesting moment where graffiti writers were actually inadvertent urban planners. What they did changed the nature of that place. And now it's a public place. It's got the park there. It's landscape. The trail goes right through there, and the greenway. But when we're thinking about who to invite to the table for urban planning, we don't think of graph writers. But
you really should.
You really should.
I mean, they know the architect better than anybody. They didn't scale so many walls and all these things. I never thought about it like that. You bring up an amazing point. Yeah, I mean, it's the people we invite to the table tells a lot about our priorities and what we, because if it hadn't been for the graph writers, I don't think that whole thing would be there. Yeah. You're right. Oh, we got 3 minutes. Okay. So normally we take a smoke break. We don't take a little intermission. Trying fill up my wine glass. Hey, I like that. Okay. I'm trying to think of anything we should talk about before we really take this break and get more in depth. Is there anything quick about Payne Lewis? You got anything? Okay. Yeah. We'll talk about Brian Murphy after break. Okay. We'll talk about him. Okay. And what happened to Stun? We've got two big stories to talk about after break. For sure. Yeah. Definitely. Okay.
So I guess my question specifically about Payne Lewis would be, from when you saw it when it started to what it is now, right? At what point did it start to look like, when did Payne Lewis resemble what it looks like now, like from the start? When did you notice a shift or a change? When it came back after it got canceled, like in the fourth year in. Okay. And we had to kind of prove ourselves. That's when we actually got a board of directors. I mean, we really made it official, right? And we started, working with the city to get permits and, post bond and everything we needed to do.
And at that point, we were starting to get some corporate sponsorship as well.
Okay.
It wasn't a lot at the beginning, but and we still had like events at some of the clubs after sundown, so to speak. Right?
Yeah.
So we were doing that almost right from the start.
Okay.
But yeah, it was kind of that second wind that it started to say, okay, this is gonna last. You know, we got it to a place where it's not just a ragtag operation anymore.
Like, it's
the irony of it was
legit.
we had to like the irony is trying to like get something like graffiti organized, right? But you know that's why it has lasted, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why it's, and also I think what also helped on another level was a lot of the work that the folks did here in St. Louis got into the magazines.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
No,
so they would
that's-
come here to do work that they could then post and put in magazines. And
Yeah.
so that started a kind of momentum on a national level as well. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I found a lot of Paint Lewis stuff in like a lot of different publications
Yeah.
when I was doing a lot of different research for stuff.
Yeah, you would. You
Yeah.
would. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ironic how it's so slept on in St. Louis, but like across the world, where it's like, oh no, people know about it. It's
People come here from all over the world to do it. And,
Yeah.
and, you know,
Yeah.
and we sit here and complain about it.
exactly.
It's,
It's
what is wrong with y'all?
it's a sick world we live in.
It's just totally backwards, you know.
You already
You
know.
turn out for Trump and not for Paint Lewis. What the hell?
I'm crying, yo. That's funny, yo. And that's hella true. But you already know we're gonna talk more Paint Lewis when we get back from this break. We'll see y'all in a minute. Peace. We back. All right. Let's get back to these Paint Lewis origins real quick. You said you had 2 important stories for us.
Yeah, well, that's an abrupt intro.
We just tap back in, you know? He
It's
just
like, okay. So yeah, and about 2 people, right? So 1999 and 2000 are when these things happened. So again, very, very early days. If the first actual Paint Lewis, or whatever we called it back then, underground graffiti fest or super fest, I think it was. But there was a kid, Brian Murphy, student. He was in Webster Groves, and he liked to draw, and he was really enchanted with the flood wall. And so apparently one night in '99, I guess some of his friends suggested they go paint. And his family lived near a railroad overpass trestle that went over a creek. And Brian and his friends went up there kind of late at night to paint, and he'd never been there before. And there's a trestle there, and I mean the railroad track covers almost the entire trestle. There's hardly any place to stand either side of it. It's up on like a culvert, right? And apparently they were up there painting, and a train came around the curve, and there was just no time for Brian to get to safety. So either he was hit by the train or he jumped off, not realizing how far down it was. And they found him the next morning in the riverbed there. His tag was Flo, which was, again, kind of ironic, right? His dad talked about that, too, about, like, surrendering to the flow of the river and all that, flow of life. And but Brian had been also talking about wanting to come down to Paint Lewis, and his dad knew it, and so he approached the group. We had the board then, right?
Okay. So
And brought some of Brian's drawings down and said, it's really meant a lot to him, and, conversations kind of get going. And this is right after we'd had this trouble with, the city pulling the plug on us. Right? And so his dad got involved in trying to help keep Paint Lewis going. And his mom did too. And So at that point, we had a board, and that's when we started really posting bond and doing all this stuff. I working with the street department. We just like, okay, we're gonna do this right, so you have no way to pull the plug on us,
Right.
basically.
Right.
And I think the fact that Brian's parents really wanted this was certainly a motivator.
Yeah.
And so that was part of the kind of a resurrection of it, right? And then, but the very next year in 2000, this is where it got very, very difficult. So Jonah was, one of the three kids sitting around Chris's apartment that night, right, wanting to start this whole thing. And Stun was his tag, and he had created a tag for me, Tempo. He'd actually done the whole thing for me, right? He actually tried to help me learn how to paint, but I couldn't keep from dripping. Right? But Tempo was my tag, right, that Jonah gave me. And Jesus, some of these things are hard to talk about. But I was actually, this picture I've got, this one of the Jonah. I was down there at the wall. This was probably June or July, right before before it was going to happen, right? And I was taking
Can I
pictures
see that
of it.
picture?
Yeah.
Can I see that picture? Yeah, I just want to separate those out so we can
Oh yeah, sure,
have those.
sure, absolutely. And I'll send you digital.
Yeah,
but
I just want to keep track of those.
yeah. So I was down there, and he was painting, and I was, photographing, obviously. And he said, "Oh, there's these writers coming in from out of town." I think it was Wednesday, and I said, "I really want you to meet them, right?" And I said, "Cool, just give me a call, right, when they get here." And Wednesday came, and I never heard from him. And Thursday came, and I never heard from him. And sometime, I guess around the weekend, I got a phone call. And it was Alani. And she said, "Did you hear what happened to Jonah?" And he and his friend Jesus had been going home. And they'd pulled into the alley behind the place, and with those little detached garages in the back, right? And there was this pickup truck with these couple white guys in it and their girlfriends, just drinking and clowning. And when Jonah and Jesus asked him, could you just kind of move your car up so we can get in our garage? Well, instead, these guys got out with apparently metal rods and bats and pulled the two of them out of the car and beat the hell out of them. A neighbor saw what happened and called, but it was almost too late for Jonah. They hit him in the head so many times that he was in a coma, and he was up at St. Mary's Hospital, and he was in one of those, those beds with the mesh around him in case you start thrashing, and they want you to throw yourself out on the ground. And so I would go up there and see him. There was so much swelling of his brain. They had to remove part of his brain to save his life. And he was, partially blinded in one eye. And, for the first few times I was up there, he couldn't communicate. And I would literally, I would just reach through the mesh, and I'd just take his finger. And I said, Jonah, right, if you can hear me, if you know who I am, if you can move your finger, just give me a sign, and it was here's the kid who was trying to breathe life back into me, and he finally kind of thrashed his way out of the coma, but he was badly damaged. The two guys that did this, brothers, they were arrested, and they got some kind of like 120-day shock treatment. Like, don't do this again, right? And but then Jonah was at rehab down at University of Missouri, and I would go down there and play games with him and just try to bring him back to the living. And he while he was still at St. Mary's, I went out on the patio with him. I brought art supplies and just to see if he could still, if there was anything left in there, right? Mm-hmm. And the first couple of times were discouraging. I mean, he couldn't do it. And I mean, to watch this just garbage come out of this kid that could do incredible artwork was really hard to watch, right? And it was hard for him because he knew that he couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. He couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And so the first time we went in the patio was pretty rough, and we weren't sure we should. Thank you. Mm-hmm. We weren't sure we should do it again because we didn't want to discourage him, mm-hmm. And we did, and I got to know his mom and dad pretty well during all this, and we'd take him down to the flood wall just to see if it could jog some memories, and he was so easily exhausted. I mean, he would just fall asleep. He would just fall asleep on these little pallets and stuff down there. But little by little, over the years, he began to come back. He's still clearly damaged, and I mean he knows what happened. He talks about it. I mean he'll take off his cap and show you the big scar, where they went in and had to take out part of his brain. Mm-hmm. But he within the first year or so, I mean, he knew who I was. And you have to take what you can get, mm-hmm. with something like that. Mm-hmm. And but he does still try to come in every year and paint. And it's because a lot of people don't know who he is. I tell him who he is, but and we always try to get our picture taken together every year. We see each other, and tell your mom. His dad has died since then, but how's your mom, and tell her hi and all that. And, but yeah, I mean, if you stop and talk to him, he'll tell you, I helped start St. Louis, right? And those like Pete, and I mean, we know who he is. Yeah. Right? But it's funny now because he'll be down there, I'll be down there. They don't know who we are. Yeah. He's just another guy painting, and I'm just this old guy walking by. And it's like, I'm the reason you're here. We're the reason you're here. Yeah. But yeah.
That's one of the things I do love about the wall. Actually, the more that we're starting to talk about this now, and now we can really bridge the gap a little bit. Mm-hmm. The more that I've only been to the wall for about three years now, and you asked me earlier.
You've seen 3 good years.
Yeah. You asked me earlier how I got into it. I can go ahead and explain that story now.
Yeah.
Go ahead and shout out to my former co-host Lila. Her husband actually, he's a graffiti artist himself, mm-hmm. and he actually knows Rat Fag and a couple of other guys, mm-hmm. and so I was introduced to the graffiti through them, and so my first time really experienced it was through Paint Louis. They told me to come down there, check out Paint Louis, and really understand what graffiti is really about. Yeah. And so they really got to introduce me to some of the artists that didn't just come from the gallery scene, but really came from the graffiti scene.
Well, I'm going to butt in for a second here, because mm-hmm. we talked about this earlier. But mm-hmm. I have said very publicly, mm-hmm. and in that documentary that I'll show you, that I think the graph writers have done more for the St. Louis art scene than the galleries have.
Exactly, that's a fact. That is a fact.
Yeah,
I would have never known about Paint Louis if it hadn't been for the actual graffiti artists that were actually out here just doing it on the streets and whatnot. Yeah. That's how I found out about all of this. Yeah. Shout out to the homie so-and-so. Mm-hmm. That's when I really started getting invested into it, because him, the homie Big John. You already know the Midwest Avengers crew, part of the crew.
They did a fundraiser for Jonah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Also part of the coordination team of Payne Lewis as well. So it's great to like really be immersed into all of this and really learning like not only just the history of St. Louis, but learning graffiti and the art of it all and the history of it all and the true meaning behind it. Not just what you see on Labor Day weekend, but all of what encompassed it. Like we were talking about earlier, like a lot of this is hieroglyphics for a lot of people that don't really know.
Right.
There's a lot of stories being told. There's a lot of things being told on these walls.
Yeah, you're going to kick out of the video because Alani uses the word hieroglyphics to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do feel that way about graffiti. When you really find out its true history and its meaning, like the words that you see, a lot of people think it's just scribble scrabble. It's like you don't even know how to read it.
Yeah.
Once you find out how it's read.
But I know. Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because it reminds me of the old, those wonderful old like neon rose posters from back in the 60s in San Francisco, like Victor Moscoso, one great poster artist back in the day, with like the Fillmore and all those places. But he said what he did was everything he learned in art school, he turned it on his head. So he said, they tell you it has to be immediately readable, right? And so he said, I'm going to make it as hard to read as possible, right? He said, and never use these colors because they vibrate. He said, I'm going to use those colors because they vibrate.
Yeah.
Right? It's but yeah, check his work out.
Okay,
too.
for sure.
Killer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love to see. Okay, so give us some of your favorite graffiti artists that have come and gone over the years.
Oh my God, there's a lot of them I don't know. I mean, some of the crews I've kind of forgotten their names, but Devious was a guy I really, really liked a lot early on. He hasn't, as far as I know, he hasn't been here the last few years.
Okay.
But he did some of those beautiful work in the early years. Saber, I don't know if he's still around. There's a kid George. I'm trying to remember because there were two guys that had used the same tag. What was it? This goes way back. I mean, but this kid George, I loved his work. I love Jonah's work, but at this point, I know a lot of them just kind of from talking to him over the years, but I couldn't probably tell you the crew names or anything like that. Just forgotten. Yeah.
One name that struck me that you said was Kababi. I did not know he had been in the graffiti scene for that long.
Yeah, he was part of that our Guerrilla Art Expo the very first year, which would have been 97, I think.
So what's it been like to see his progression?
Oh, it's just delightful, right? I mean, and the kind of person he is, what a sweet guy. The father series. And, I mean, he's. I'm going to say some stuff I probably shouldn't say. He's one of the artists I'm so happy to see get recognized. Did the children's book, and I mean, what a sweet man. What I like about him is, besides his work being sweet, he's a very humble guy. There's other artists in town who can't wait to proclaim that they're artists, and their work is crap.
No, yeah, you're right.
You're right. It's like you ought to be doing better work, not just claiming to be an artist.
That's right.
And some of them are doing it very publicly, and frankly, they're getting a lot of attention, a lot of a lot of this, from people I think are intimidated. They're afraid to criticize them, but
afraid of getting excommunicated out of the group.
Oh yeah. One of the people I think I would argue this guy's the best artist in St. Louis. It's not graffiti though. Okay, Robert Green. Okay, Robert Green. He grew up in Pruitt-Igoe. He's the one that helped put together. Well, he basically put together the whole Percy Green weekend. He's got a home and a studio up on St. Louis Avenue.
Okay.
And I should bring you guys to see his
For sure.
what he calls his studio. It's a 2-story house that he just, it's like a single work of art, but it's, all these individual pieces, right? But, a lot of people come in and say, oh, I'd like to buy that. He goes, no, it belongs here. It's
Right.
part of this whole process. He calls his work his journal. He pretty much refuses to call himself an artist, which is like, God, how refreshing is that? It's like you're the best artist in St. Louis, and you refuse to use the word. It's like, wow. But yeah, he's Robert Greene. He deals a lot with sort of racial trauma, right? Personal trauma as well as racial trauma. And his work is just, I'm going to take my students up there next week to see him. Every class I have, I say, you're going to go see Robert's studio, right? And he'll talk to him. And but yeah, there's one piece in an upstairs room. It takes up the whole room. It is so powerful. I've had students say, I can't even go in there.
Wow.
It's just like, I can't do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's
I'll take you guys up there.
Please do.
Yeah,
let us know
happy
when.
Go.
Yeah. But what a refreshing thing it is to have him be the best artist and not even use the word. We had other people literally engraving their names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yo.
Yeah.
I love that.
But,
Okay, so now that you brought up your students, let's talk about you teaching, because I feel like that is a very important thing that I really want to discuss.
well, I think it grew out of, for ever since around 1990, I've had one foot in the projects, one foot in WashU. Right?
Yo, that's a bar.
Yeah.
That's a bar.
Yeah. And, I know a lot of people that are like comfortable in one but not the other, but, I've lived in, I can do both.
Yeah.
And, my son's in a project, right? And you don't put a family together like ours without, but yeah, I kind of joke. I'm in the architecture school. I'm not an architect, but I build bridges, right? And I bring,
I like that.
yeah.
Yo, you sure you're not a rapper? You got some bars over here, yo.
Well, work on me.
Maybe we can do some ghost writing. We might be able to figure something out.
There we go. Right, yeah, I'd be happy. Another late in life career, right? But so actually, the dean of students, Jim McLeod, who was just this wonderful, wonderful man. He and I banged into each other on campus. We were just walking across campus, and Jim and I banged into each other, start talking, and he goes, "Hey, Bob, I hear you're taking our WashU kids down to the projects." I thought, oh God, he's gonna yell at me, right? He said, "This is fabulous."
Yeah.
Right? This is the kind of guy Jim was, right? He said, "This is fabulous." He said, "Is there any way we could turn this into a course where the kids don't have to try to squeeze it in their spare time, and making it a course might compromise some things, but still, it's like they could sign up to do this and really be committed to it, right?"
Wow.
And I said, well, okay. And that's where my community building course came from. And initially, in a way, and a lot of things I've done is I try to explain my life and my son's life to ourselves and to other people. Right? Like, why are there the projects? Why did I grow up where I did, the way I did? Why did I know the people I knew, didn't know the people I didn't know? Why did Jovan grow up where he did? Why did my WashU kids and my kids in Peabody have such different pasts and presents and probable futures still? Right? And so in a way, this course is to try to come to grips with this myself. And as you learn, and I learned the role that people like my own family played in it.
Right.
Things like the Great Migration, the GI Bill. I mean, these are ideas, but they hit the ground in real people's lives, you know? And, you know, my grandparents and parents, you know, were part of that, you know? My grandparents were immigrants. My parents, you know, my dad got a GI Bill, right? And so, and I use that to talk to my students, because when I try to talk about it, someone get defensive. It's like, oh, you're criticizing my family. It's like, I'm criticizing my family.
Exactly.
You know, this is just the facts, folks.
Exactly.
You know, I'm not even criticizing. This is the truth.
Exactly.
This is just what happened. You know, and you know, when there's these decisions to be made, and you got a couple million people making the same decision, you've got a social movement that's going to affect the country, and it's also going to affect the people who cannot make those decisions. You know, and so the course is a hard-hitting course. I mean, you don't sign up for my course because you want a sugar-coated version of anything. It's blunt, and but luckily the word is out, and the kids who sign up for it want that, because they haven't gotten it, you know. And it's amazing. There are some young folks that really do want to hear the truth.
Oh yeah.
Right? And some of them are white.
If you don't mind me spill a little bit about that research that I did, I actually stumbled upon where they do like the whole rating of your course.
Oh,
and I read a couple other reviews.
I haven't even looked at them. Are they good?
They are, actually.
Good.
Yes.
I don't even look at
Oh,
them.
no. They say you run a tough course, but like the things that you learn from it are life-changing.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you for doing the research on me.
Come on now.
Because I don't research myself. I just do it and hope for the best, right?
Oh, no, you a popular man now.
I'm not changing it.
You got a little bit of info out there.
All right.
You've done quite a few things out here. You won a couple awards out here.
Yeah, a bunch of awards. It's amazing. Yeah. I think the one that meant most to me a couple of years ago, Dred and Harriet Scott's great-great-granddaughter, Lynn Jackson. I got an inaugural Dred Scott Freedom Award from her.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm gonna. That's going in the casket.
Oh yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Of all the awards we've gotten, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. I mean, having anything with my name and Dred Scott's on it.
That's major. That is monumental.
Yeah. 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 It's funny. When I got that, I took it to church. Reverend Davis was still alive. He was probably about 100 years old then, and I took the award there to church to show him. And he had his picture taken with my award. And then somebody said, well, it's Bob's award. Let him get in the picture. So I got this beautiful picture of him and me in the award.
That's fire.
Yeah.
That's fire. But I love everything. Like, even when we met you, you had students and you were showing them the culture. Like, you were, I don't know. That really struck me when I saw that. I was like, wow, like, this is dope.
It seems so obvious to me, but yeah, I guess, yeah. I guess, yeah.
But it's really,
apparently it's not.
Yeah. It's not.
Because I don't try to do anything because it's different. I just do what I think seems the right thing to do, and it turns out to be different.
And most people don't try to do the right thing.
Yeah. Well, I also gave the Martin Luther King talk a few years ago, 2010.
Really?
I should send that to you.
Yes.
It was fire. It was. I let loose. I was there. I knew. I was there for him, right? I knew. Yeah. It's just like. And the way he's been whitewashed is just like unbelievable. I'm
gonna keep my mouth shut on that.
You don't. You're very. I hear you very much with your mouth shut. Right? But it's funny because when I was writing that speech, like, okay, you want me to do this, right? And I was writing the speech, and I talked to Javon. I said, Javon, if I say what I really believe, I'm going to piss off so many people. I said, I'm thinking about cutting out about half of this. He said, Pops, you could cut out half of it and still piss people off. Yeah. Just say what you really think.
You might as well just go ahead. Yeah, say it with your chest.
Yeah. So but the year I gave it, Martin Luther King was right the week before the semester started. So I said, okay, I'll give it to an empty auditorium, right? Like Graham Chapel. And so I thought, okay, because I'm gonna go off, right? And so I got there that night, and I'm sitting in front, just waiting. And I'm thinking, okay, nobody's going to show up. Nobody's going to show up, right? And then, the ceremony started. And actually, the chancellor was right behind me. And Percy Green and Jamala were there.
Really?
Right behind me. Yeah. They were there for it, right? And when it started, the young woman got up to Mr. Ceremony. She looked and goes, wow. Oh, crap. People showed up, right? And it was my turn to come. She announced me. I go up there. I was freaked out. They like broke fire code. I mean, it was like they completely filled the base, the bottom. They completely filled the balcony. All of the aisles were filled. The stairs going up to the balcony were filled. They even opened the doors so people outside could try to hear in.
Really?
I mean, I guess they knew I was going to shoot my mouth off, right? And they showed up. So it was like, and I'm up there going, okay, it's too late to rewrite it. I gotta deliver what I wrote. So here I go. But I had put a couple like little lines in the beginning to kind of gauge how I was doing, right? And I got to one of them, and I started getting some amens from the black folks.
Yeah. That's how you knew you was cooking.
I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay.
You said I'm cooking.
Yeah, I don't care what anybody else thinks. And so I just ripped.
My dog was looking like me at open mics.
I ripped.
You got jokes.
And when it was all, I just went through it, right? I was in the zone. Right?
Yeah.
And when it was all over, I just said, like, thank you. And, like, I stepped back. It was absolute silence for a minute. And all of a sudden, it was like Graham Chapel was on a spring. It was like everybody jumped up all at once, right? And I mean, they were screaming and hollering and hugging each other. And it was like pandemonium. It was like blessed pandemonium, right? And it just went on for minute after minute. And then Giovanna brought some of the City Faces kids. So they come up to give me a hug. Because Percy leaned across the aisle to Giovanni and said, go up and give your dad a hug. He needs it, right? And the kids came up. And, well, that just set everybody off again. I mean, it was like 5 minutes of this. And, and afterwards, then we won the Rosa Parks Award that night.
Damn.
Yeah. And it was but yeah, that speech is still online. I mean, you can read the transcript. They taped it, but they lost the tape.
Okay.
But you can read it, and I can send it to you. But I got some really interesting reactions to that. And one of them, I think, one of the more interesting ones, one I was embarrassed to talk about, but one was guys probably about your age came up to me after I said, they said, if I had said what you just said, I would just be dismissed as an angry black man.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. But you were able to use your complexion to get that stuff across.
Yeah, yeah.
And I value that,
That's to me. That's what's most important. When if we're just gonna keep it real, I feel like when a lot of white people come into black spaces and whatnot, I feel like don't just do it just to have a personal gain. Like there really needs to be something that actually comes out of it, not just for yourself. But
not for yourself. This isn't about your own personal transformation. This is about justice for other people.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people fail to do that, but
Well, the line in the speech that really apparently jumped out to a lot of people. Like Giovanni even put on a T-shirt for me, which is weird wearing a T-shirt with your own quote on it. But it was, if I can get my own quote right, it was basically kind of like, here's a test, right? Word washy, right? It says, if you couldn't speak, and if you couldn't tell people what your values are, could they tell what they are by just your actions?
Yeah.
King talked about this. When push comes to shove, after we got rid of the bulldogs and the whips and the ropes, most white people went off and looked like they lived like Klansmen.
Yeah.
They had more in common with the Klan than they did with black folks.
So they just stuck together.
Yeah. And so that's what I was saying. My whole speech was like that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I know. I was sweating bullets the whole time. It's like, okay, there goes my job.
Shit. That's at least your worries is your job. Shit.
I know. Because he even talked about that. People are afraid to lose their jobs, so they don't speak up.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
what's more important?
and again, I like to interject when I feel like I got
Please
something to actually add in. But getting back to your point where you said that you were able to use your complexion to better get across a message to a wider range of people. I think that's definitely something that isn't really common. And that's a way of thinking. That's a selfless way of thinking. To understand, to recognize and understand. Okay, I exist in a place of privilege. How can I use that to make the playing field fair and equitable?
Here's another story that you'll really like because it also involves Percy. So when I went down to Peabody's, I started seeing things, right? Police abuse that, again, folks like me don't usually see, right? But I saw it, and so I decided I was going to testify to the Board of Aldermen about it. And they had a hearing, and I was about the sixth person to testify, and almost everybody before me was a young black man. Mm-hmm. And they got up and said, like, basically what I'm going to say, right? And you could see the Board of Aldermen kind of go, oh, God, nobody ever has been, nobody ever admits what they're really doing, right? And I was sitting next to Percy, right? And I said, Percy, should I play the race card? And he said, play every goddamn card you got. And so they weren't videoing the thing, but they were recording it, right? So I got up and, into the mic said, I'm a older white male academic, and said the same thing those black kids had said. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because for a minute you could see some of the aldermen go, oh, well, if he says it, right? Mm-hmm. But then there was this other thing that almost like, well, he drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, that's
and they
true.
were able to dismiss it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's ways around everything.
That's a fact. Unfortunately, that is a fact.
Yeah. But we keep trying, right?
No, you can never give up.
I'm 77 and still going, right?
Hell yeah.
I have no intention. I think I'm getting worse as the years go by.
Hey, that's how
I
it's
think
supposed
it's
to
better,
go.
right?
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
I mean, not to try to like reach for something, but to bring it back to art, that I feel like that's something that I don't want to say that we don't necessarily see now, right? But of course, everything's highly, polarized and politicized and everything like that. And of course, about political cartoons, and that was one way to convey a type of message or disdain for the system or whatever the case may be. But St. Louis, I feel like after seeing the flood wall and seeing how the graffiti there, that's a whole different art form that speaks to different types of things. Yeah. And so it's like, I guess the question I want to ask you is, do you feel like maybe graffiti as it is now could be the next form? I mean, it always has been like a form of speaking out against injustice and stuff like that, right? But like, do you see that as an art form that might be coming to the forefront to maybe overtake a political cartoon or something that'll speak loud? Yeah.
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, because obviously to some extent the graffiti is place specific and you have to kind of be there, right? The cartoons can go anywhere, right? But
yeah.
But yeah, but also a part of what you're saying is what I think is interesting is a lot of times people go down there to see the amazing art, but then tucked in are all these, really interesting messages that they're going to confront you. And I like that. Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. I just think we listen to all the wrong people.
I agree.
We listen to people that do not deserve to be listened to. They're just idiots.
I 1,000% agree.
They're evil and they're idiots. Right? And I don't know. I hope that maybe by using the attractiveness of some of the murals, some of the messages can then get through. It's kind of like using my melanin, right, to get messages across.
Gotcha.
You find something that attracts people, and then you You know,
Yeah.
you deliver the message.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a fact. Okay, so I hate to do this, but we got to wrap up because the camera's getting ready to go out.
We are literally 2%.
Okay, so
Wow.
Let me-
We're not even near 2%.
I
I'm
know.
98 still.
you definitely got to come back.
All right.
Yeah, and with that artist that you said that has the property here, we can do like
Oh,
that's
you
something
should-
that we should contact him to do on set.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
I agree.
should
Yeah,
do, Robert.
I agree.
Yes.
So trust me, that's
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. I 1,000% agree. So okay, let them know where they can find you at, if you even want to be found.
Yeah, I mean, you can just Google Bob and Javon Hansman, and it'll all this stuff comes up that we didn't post. I don't know who posted it. We're all over the place.
No, that's a fact.
Gotcha.
Email. Should I just give email?
Yeah, if you like.
It's just all lowercase. It's Hansman, Hansman at wustl.edu. So it's Hansman at washustlouis.education.
Yes,
the
sir.
basic one. That's an easy way, right?
Yes, sir. Okay, and I appreciate you so much. All right, let me hurry up and wrap this up. Okay, say your socials real quick.
Okay, SLUM3Ps 1D_ out. There you go.
All right, Too T3rpd on all socials. Shout out some socials T. Too T3rpd on YouTube. Make sure you hit up that hotline, voicemails and text 314-399-9711. And don't forget to follow me, Donovan 2408 on all social media platforms. Ooh, I'm a beast.
Oh my goodness, that was quick.
Come on now, what you talking about, boy? Every time and then, when I'm in the clutch, I know what to do. But you already know. We going to catch y'all next week because it's another Too T3rpd episode. And you already know this is Paint Lewis. So you already know that Paint Lewis episode is coming very soon. We had to give y'all something hot. But in the meantime, peace.